YouTube, how's it going? Hope you are doing well. I'm not gonna be one of these people that's like, here's why I haven't posted in 3 months. I don't wanna get into that. It's gonna take too much time and I wanna get right into the video. So, yes, it's been a little while, but I'm happy to be back. Today's video is gonna be a little different. Well, not different because I've only posted like 3 YouTube videos before this, but it's gonna be a Q&A. So if you follow me on Instagram, which by the way, if you don't follow me on Instagram, what are you doing? Why are you not following me on Instagram? You know that I do a Q&A on my story, once a week, once every other week-ish. And I figured this time I would do a Q&A here on YouTube because I can go a little bit more in depth with my answers. You know, as you know, when you do a Q&A on your story on Instagram, it's like one slide, one story, and then you move on to the next one. It's not really as in depth. So I figured I'd answer a few questions here on YouTube and go a little bit more in depth to give a really, really detailed answer for you guys. So for those of you who filled out that question box and asked me some questions, thank you for doing so. For those of you who didn't ask me questions, what are you doing? Why would you not want me to answer your questions? It's free. I'm doing it for you guys. Anyway, without further ado, let's just get right into the first question. The first question is from AC Ward. Shout out AC. What are some of your fave low-calorie snacks, like the popcorn you posted earlier? Thanks. So I'll talk about that popcorn here in a second. I'll actually weigh it out for you and I'll show you why I love popcorn so much as a snack. But when it comes to low-calorie snacks, what I want you to remember is convenience is king. The more you can make low-calorie snacks convenient in that you just have them readily available, the more likely you are to gravitate towards those rather than the chips and the cookies and the ice cream sandwiches, whatever else you crave. So my biggest tip for you is make buying low-calorie snacks a priority when you go grocery shopping. And I'll talk about some of my favorites. So one thing that I always do is I always have cut up veggies in Tupperware in my fridge, easily accessible, right? A lot of people say they have a hard time getting their fruits and veggies in. Usually it's because you're trying to fit them into your meals, but then you have to like saute them and cook them and it kind of can be a pain. So have veggies cut up in your fridge. So what I like doing is I like having baby carrots, some of my favorites. I also really like cutting up cucumber, having that. I also really like cutting up bell peppers. I love bell peppers. And just have these in Tupperware in your fridge because if they're easily accessible and they're convenient, you'll gravitate towards them and you'll actually want to eat them because it's easy to do so. So that's my first tip for you is have veggies cut up and just have them in your fridge. Another tip I have for you is have fruit readily available. So apples, some of my favorites, apples, bananas, oranges. I also really like if it's summer, having watermelon cut up, really, really tasty. Also having like a bowl of berries in your fridge. So having strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, again, right there for you. Again, it all comes back to convenience. If you have this stuff available, you'll eat it, right? The alternative is if you don't have it, you're gonna gravitate towards those high calorie snacks. Now, right now you're probably saying, Dylan, like I don't fruit and veggies, why would I just wanna eat that all the time? Well, personally what I like doing, because when it comes to snacking, what time of day are you usually snacking? Usually it's not like at 11 a.m. on a random weekday, it's at night, right? It's those cravings you get at 9:30 at night, 10 o'clock at night, when you want a snacky type food and you're like, do I go with the healthier option? Do I go with the tastier option? Personally, what I do when I want a snack, but I'm conscious about what I want to eat is I'll say to myself, I can have the chips, I can have the ice cream sandwich, I can have the cookies, but first I'm gonna have some of those cut up veggies that I talked about, or I'm gonna have a piece of fruit. Then I'm gonna eat it. Then I'm gonna wait about 15 minutes, let it digest a little bit. And if after the 15 minutes, I still want the higher calorie thing, I'll allow myself to have it. But what I like about this strategy is it kind of separates you from the food in the sense that it makes you more objective about the decisions that you're making around food. Because if you always give in to those short-term impulses, you're always gonna go for the high calorie option because it's tastier, right? So what I like doing is, and one of my mentors, Jordan Syatt, calls it the fruit test, or I think he calls it the apple test, where if you're deciding if you're genuinely hungry or not, you wanna know if you're genuinely hungry, just ask yourself, am I hungry enough right now to eat an apple? If you're hungry enough to eat an apple, you're actually hungry. On the other hand, if an apple doesn't sound very good, you're probably just bored and you want the chips or whatever it is. So what I like doing is if I'm genuinely hungry, I'm like, I want the apple, I'll eat the apple, wait 15 minutes, separate myself from the food, take all the emotion out of wanting that short-term impulse, and then I go and I have it if I want it in terms of the chips or the cookies or whatever it is. So that's a tip that I have, is have those foods readily available, have them easily accessible in your fridge, so that you're not just grabbing the high calorie stuff immediately. Now, in addition to the fruits and veggies, having those on hand so that you have some really low calorie things to snack on, a few other things that I really like are gonna be higher protein snacks. So I'll show you a couple right here. One of my favorites, you can see this, beef jerky, super, super high protein for a snack, and it's pretty low calorie. This entire bag's only 90 calories. And I love these because they're pre-packaged, so they're very, very easy to just grab. You know exactly how many calories you're eating and you don't overeat. Another thing that I really, really like is Greek yogurt. You can see right here, non-fat Greek yogurt. Again, one serving of this, 140 calories, 13 grams of protein, an awesome way to just get protein. You know protein is gonna fill you up more than carbs and fats, so by having higher protein snacks like this on hand, it's gonna fill you up more when you do want a snack. And then also, for those of you who like cottage cheese, low-fat cottage cheese, similar macros to the Greek yogurt, really, really good low-calorie snack, and helps you get your protein intake too as well, which is awesome. In addition to the fruits, veggies, high protein snacks. So in addition to the high protein stuff, I also really like popcorn. And I know AC Ward, who asked this question, mentioned the popcorn. So I wanna show you guys, because I've never actually really showed you how to weigh food. So I want to show you what a serving of popcorn actually looks like, and it's gonna really put into perspective how good of a snack popcorn is. I'm gonna compare it to chips, so instead of telling you, why don't I just show you what that actually looks like? All right, welcome to the kitchen. So I wanna show you why I love popcorn so much as a low-calorie snack, like she mentioned in the question, because a lot of people who have never tracked their food or weighed their food don't really realize just how much volume you can get in a lower calorie option. So first, I have my food scale right here. If you can see that, 20 bucks on Amazon, really, really cheap. I've had this for like a couple years, super durable. So what I wanna do is I wanna weigh out a serving of popcorn and compare it to a serving of chips and just put it into perspective how good of an option popcorn is as a low calorie snack, okay? So first, how I do it is you look at the nutrition label, show you that right there, and you wanna weigh your food in grams on a food scale, solid food in grams. So here you can see that it says a serving, I don't know if you can see this, but it says a serving of popcorn is 28 grams. So I'm gonna weigh that out and I'm gonna compare it to a serving of chips. So I'm putting the plate on the food scale, then I'm zeroing it out so that the plate isn't included in the weight of the food. And I'm just gonna weigh out, ooh, overboard. I'm gonna weigh out 28 grams. It's gonna take a while.
Approximately 10 hours later.
Kind of a small plate for this. Boom, it's 26. Let me throw some of these on there. 27. It's close enough.
One eternity later.
28 grams, right there. That's 28 grams. That's one serving of popcorn, right? All of that is only 150 calories. Now I'm gonna show you what that looks like compared to a serving of chips. By the way, this is not a low calorie snack, but these chips, these baked cheddar and sour cream ruffles are so freaking good. I could devour a bag of this easily. Again, not a low calorie snack, not recommending this as a low calorie snack. I'm just gonna compare it to the popcorn, calorie wise. So again, putting the plate on the food scale, zeroing it out so that the plate doesn't weigh anything. This is also 28 grams for one serving, so I'm gonna weigh it out. Boom, 28 grams. Okay, now we compare. Again, kind of a small plate, this stuff's going overboard. Here we have one serving of popcorn compared to one serving of these chips. Do you see how depressing that is? I could eat this in about 5 seconds. Versus this, you get so much more food for the same amount of calories. Both of these are around 150 calories. Actually, let me see. Okay, the chips are 120 calories, very, very close. So both are 28 grams. You see how much more volume you get, and I'll come up closer to the camera. I want to tip this over, but you can see how much more volume you get in the popcorn because it weighs less, so you can get more food for the same amount of calories. This is why I highly recommend, again, this has nothing to do with the question, I'm just trying to provide as much value as possible. So I highly recommend spending at least just 7 to 14 days tracking and weighing out all your food. You don't have to do it for the rest of your life. I think one of the main reasons people don't like tracking their food is they assume they're gonna have to do it forever. No, just track for 14 days. You learn stuff like this, that wow, look how much popcorn I can get for 150 calories compared to the chips. Wow, that's kind of depressing that's how many chips I can get for only 120 calories. It's freaking depressing, right? So you learn stuff like this by tracking your food. It allows you to make better decisions around nutrition so that you can enjoy those low calorie snacks and kind of know what makes more sense in terms of what to eat to fit into your calories. All right, let's move on to the next question. All right, next question here is from Alex Gonzalez. Any glute growth tips? What's a good barbell squat stance? Thank you. So I'll start off by answering the second question because it's pretty quick. So when you're doing a barbell back squat, in terms of the stance, a lot of people ask this question because they have a hard time getting deep enough into a squat. So usually the more narrow your stance, the harder it is to get down deep into a squat. So the easiest way to increase mobility like instantly is just to have your feet a little bit outside shoulder width and just point your toes out slightly. It's really that simple. Yes, you can do ankle mobility exercises. Yes, you can do hip mobility exercises, and that's great. But if you want to just increase your squat depth immediately and have the right stance for it, just have your feet usually just outside shoulder width with those toes pointed out, and you'll be all good to go. Now, in terms of the question you have on glute growth tips, I'll give you one tip for training, one tip for nutrition, and one tip for recovery, just to make this answer as well-rounded as possible. So for training, I'm a firm believer that people overcomplicate this way, way, way too much. A lot of people think if they want to grow their glutes, they need to be doing tons and tons of exercises. They need to be doing 10 exercises on Monday and 10 exercises on Thursday for glutes and training it all the time. It's like, no. What I would really want you to focus on when it comes to training is, first of all, understand that muscle growth takes a long time. So have a mindset that this is going to take months and months for you to obtain, right? Muscle growth is a very slow process. You don't notice it in the mirror every single day. So first thing I want you to do is, from a training perspective, I want you to pick a few really good basic exercises and stick with them for months and months and months. Track your progress over time. That doesn't mean you need to do them all the time, meaning let's say each program that you do is 4 weeks. It doesn't mean you have to do the same exercises every single month. You could do certain exercises for a month and then take a month off, do different exercises, and then go back to them. But over the course of a year or so, I want you to track your progress on basic exercises. And if, for example, on a dumbbell Romanian deadlift, if a year ago you were using 30-pound dumbbells and today you're using 60-pound dumbbells, well, you doubled your weight. Chances are you grew your glutes as a byproduct, right? But you wouldn't know to increase the weight over time unless you're actually tracking that, even just in the notes on your phone, something as simple as that. So my biggest tip is pick good basic exercises and track your progress over time and ensure you're getting stronger. Because if you're getting stronger and your nutrition and recovery are in check, chances are you are growing your glutes. In terms of good exercises to pick, what I would do is I would train your glutes twice a week. So let's say you do it on Monday and Thursday. Maybe you do 2 glute exercises on Monday and 2 glute ones on Thursday. So I would pick a good squat movement, a good lunge movement, a good hip thrust movement, and a good deadlift movement. So let's do an example. Let's say on Monday, you do a squat and a hip thrust. So let's say you do some sort of squat variation, a leg press, a landmine squat, something like that. And then you also do a hip thrust variation, maybe something like a Smith machine hip thrust, right? You check 2 of those exercises off in that first workout of the week. Then on Thursday, you go and you do a lunge and a deadlift variation. So maybe you do a rear foot elevated split squat, everyone's favorite, right? Those suck, but they're really good for glute growth. You do a rear foot elevated split squat, Bulgarian split squat, and then you also do a dumbbell Romanian deadlift. Boom. So now over the course of the week, you did 4 really good glute exercises, and now your goal over time is just track progress on them and aim to get stronger over time. That's my number 1 tip when it comes to training. Now, when it comes to nutrition, chances are if you're asking this question, you probably care more about muscle growth than you do fat loss. So my biggest tip is don't put yourself in a calorie deficit if you're really trying to grow your glutes. Again, if you're someone you care about muscle growth, I would recommend eating around your calorie maintenance or even in a slight calorie surplus. So to know what your calorie maintenance is, which by the way, that's just the amount of calories you need to maintain your weight, what I would do is I would Google TDEE calculator. There's a few free calculators that are gonna pop up. Input your information. It's gonna give you a rough estimate of what your calorie maintenance is. If you eat around there, or even about 300 to 500 calories above that, you should be able to optimize your nutrition for muscle growth, assuming that you're eating enough protein as well. I recommend eating about 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you do that, you eat around your maintenance or a slight surplus, plus eating enough protein, you'll have your nutrition dialed in. Just make sure you're not in a calorie deficit for an extended period of time while you're trying to grow your glutes, because that wouldn't be optimal. You can build muscle in a deficit, but it's not gonna be optimized. So for recovery, I think the biggest thing to pay attention to is sleep. Sleep is incredibly important. I think a lot of people who ask a question like, how do I grow muscle? Their first instinct is, what supplements do I need to take? I would focus way more on high quality sleep and how much sleep you're getting. So there's actually one study that looked at individuals that were getting 8 hours of sleep compared to individuals getting 5 hours of sleep, and they were looking at different metrics like fat loss, muscle gain, stuff like that. They found that the group that was getting 8 hours of sleep lost way more fat and built and retained a lot more muscle, whereas the group that was getting 5 hours of sleep lost less fat and also lost more muscle. So sleep is incredibly important for not only fat loss, which I know isn't your question, but also muscle growth and muscle retention. I can't begin to tell you just how important sleep is. Sleep is the only real supplement you need. Dial in your sleep. Ideally, getting 7 hours as consistently as possible. I know for a lot of people that's a struggle. No less than 6. Really try to get no less than 6, but really aim for 7 as consistently as possible to optimize your sleep. And those are the 3 things you really want to focus on. Getting progressively stronger in the gym on good basic exercises, not being in a calorie deficit, eating more around a calorie maintenance to maybe a slight calorie surplus, and optimizing your sleep. If you do those 3 things, you, my friend, are gonna grow a dump truck. You are gonna grow some glutes, and you are gonna be the next Kim Kardashian. Maybe not actually Kim Kardashian, but you know what I mean. All right, last question here is from Alloway775. And they ask, what do you do when you have an off day and you're just not feeling it? This is a really, really good question, because I think, if you follow me on Instagram, you see me as a trainer, you probably think, oh, everything's perfect all the time, I'm always motivated. No, I'm not. Okay, I'm human. You'd be surprised how many trainers don't feel motivated to work out and don't feel motivated to eat right every single day. It's more common than you think. We're human just like everybody else. One thing I will say with this question is, full transparency, I would say I'm consistent enough to where when I have an off day, which I do, I don't beat myself up about it. Because number one, I know that it's a part of the process. It's inevitable. There's nothing I can do to make sure those days don't happen. They're just gonna happen no matter what. But the thing for me is, I'm consistent enough the majority of the time to where I can have an off day and it doesn't really negatively affect my progress. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, you saw that back in December, I did a consistency challenge where I marked throughout the month, I literally printed out a calendar and I marked my consistency with calories, hitting my protein intake, and my workouts. And my goal was to be 80% consistent by the end of the month, which means that roughly, let's say 26 out of 30 days in a month, you're doing those things. And if you remember that challenge, there were about 4 to 5 days where I didn't hit my calories, where I didn't hit my protein, where I didn't get my workouts in. But it was okay, because by the end of the month, I was 80% consistent. So I think a lot of people aren't consistent enough to where having an off day doesn't really affect them, right? What you have to ask yourself is, am I consistent enough to where if I have an off day here and there, is it really hindering my progress? Because if you're 80 to 90% consistent, you can have those off days and it's not really gonna negatively impact you at all. On the other hand, if you're somebody that you're having those off days more consistently, I would ask yourself 1 of 2 things. Number 1 is, how disciplined am I actually being? Meaning, am I holding myself accountable to showing up, even and especially when I don't feel like it? But let's say you're someone that you're like, yeah, I'm pretty disciplined. I'm having an off day where I'm not hitting my calories or not getting my workout in. That's where I'd ask myself, is the plan that I'm following realistic and conducive to me being consistent? Because if you feel like it's just so damn hard for you to be consistent on the plan that you're currently following, it might be time to get a new plan. But you have to be honest with yourself about how disciplined are you actually being. But again, to answer your question, what do I do when I'm not feeling it? I just allow myself to have one of those days. And the thing is that usually you have one of those days and then the next day ends up being a pretty good day, right? It's just a part of the process, right? It's like a roller coaster. You have ups, you have downs. It's just a part of the process. So because I know that those days are gonna happen, I just stick it out. I allow myself to have those off days, and I know that usually the day after is probably gonna be a pretty good day, because it always ebbs and flows, right? You have those good days, you have bad days. You have good days, you have bad days. And as long as you stick it out and you don't quit, that's really all that matters. The key is, are you gonna be the person that's willing to stick it out over the long run, even and especially when you have those bad days? If you allow those days to be a justification for you quitting, then obviously you're not gonna be successful because you're quitting. As long as you stick it out, you'll be fine in the long run. I promise, I promise. Understand that those days are normal and to be expected. As long as you're 80 to 90% consistent, you can have those days and you can still make pretty good progress. All right, that does it for today's video. If you got value from this one, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps videos like this get pushed out to new people. And if you aren't subscribed already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I wanna post a lot more here on YouTube moving forward. I really like making these videos. And I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you in the next one.